Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzydoodledesigns, and finally I'm back to Africa. I had my passport, I utilized it, and off we go. Where are we going, y'all? We are going to Cairo. So today I am going to be using a set of pencils that is going to be a surprise for one of my longtime viewers. Miss Sherry always uses Arrtx, and she's never complained at all about any medium I use, but I will see her struggling to do conversions sometimes. So today I thought I would make it a little easier for her, and we're going to use the Arctic pencils. So I'm going to be doing this page. My thoughts right now is kind of a maybe turquoise and brown red kind of combination. So we'll see how we get on. Let's go. Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, the way I do my color alongs most often are a voiceover, usually at 2x speed. That way you can slow it down to real time if you would like. But it just makes the videos not quite so long. And that way I can show you everything that I'm doing. Now, I will say this page was a little bit of a challenge for me in the sense that I knew I wanted to do kind of this red-brown kind of color, and I knew I wanted to do some turquoise. So I got that done, and then I got on the struggle bus. And so I apologize because I know it kind of sucks. Like if I use a color and I color one thing and then I put that down and then I do something else and then I go back to that same color combination. But I really was struggling to figure out how to make this page cohesive, and I wasn't sure what colors would look good, and it was just a little harder page for me color palette wise. So forgiveness, but I will try and walk you through my thought process as we go. And this page in general was a struggle. I used the gel pen a little too early, and because it was on the pencil, it didn't dry quickly. So even though I left it for several minutes, which I thought would be enough, it wasn't. So I smeared gel pen all over the place, had to touch all that up. I think I kept that in the video, not all of it because it was a mess. But I will kind of talk you through how I fixed it. As for what we're doing right now, I'm just using a little bit of a gradient to go from dark to light and working through, I wanted the overall color to be in this red kind of color. So you're going to see me work through the blend a couple of times just to get it more of the way that I want it. This is the part of the page that I had a very clear idea of what I wanted it to look like and how I wanted it to look. So oftentimes I will start with something like this as being, well, I know I want that, right? And then I just work from there. Other times I know exactly what I want pretty much throughout the entire page. This was not this was not that way. So I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this. But the one thing I will tell you is if you want to do this color along with me, the one thing I would recommend, normally I feel like most of my color alongs are relatively easy to follow. I do try and It's hard because when I color, I just jump around all over the place and it doesn't matter. But I do try and be aware of what's going on for you, the viewer. However, I will warn you, I anticipate, I don't know. I mean, it's like sometimes I do one building and then work my way. I stop and I look at the whole page and then I say, okay, maybe I'll do this building this color. So I switch combinations and then I go a little back and forth. So you may want to watch ahead a little bit. And then once you get an idea of what I'm going to do, then you can go back and be a little more mindful of how you color it. So that's just one little recommendation. And if you're new to my channel, I don't normally struggle quite this much. And maybe I'm making much ado about nothing because I'm voicing over now. I haven't watched the entire video. It was just my perception of how it went from my end felt a little discombobulated. So I'm anticipating the same for you. So maybe it's that. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best, shall we? Now, one thing I also want to note is if you see a little face up in the upper left-hand corner, like a girl talking, that means I'm actually chatting. If she's gone, that means there's music playing. And I do that so you know where to turn the volume back up in case you don't like the music. Because I know that always kind of bothers me as a viewer, is if the music's on and I don't really want to listen to their music, I don't want to miss what they say either. So I feel like I got to keep the music on in order to not miss anything. As far as topics, I know we'll probably talk about Cairo and then we'll see where it goes. So I know that the Nile is in Cairo, which I'm assuming is what is depicted here with the boats. And so we may talk about that as well. And we'll just kind of see as we go along. Okay, here I thought I was going to color those little lines in a dark brown and changed my mind because I had the idea of doing the gold. So I just put that on hold for now. I erased it and we'll just see what happens later on. All right, next step for the turquoises. So this ocean green is actually not going to be the darkest green that I use, or the darkest blue, turquoise, or whatever you want to call it. So, but I am kind of laying it in where I thought the darkest places would be. So kind of at the bottom of each of these little waves. And then I'm going to move up in a gradient all the way up to the tips. Now, if you're a little more patient than I am, try and leave a little more white up at the top. I didn't quite leave enough for my liking, so I did go in with the white gel pen, or not paint pen, I guess it is, the Posca, to add my white highlights, which is always an option and a different look. So you can decide if you leave it white, then you always have the option of just having it that way and not having to put the Posca pen on it. Really the choice is yours because they are a little different looks. But, I'm just going to work my way through the gradient here, probably 2 or 3, I don't know, at least twice, right? Because the first time I'm just getting a feel for where the colors are going to be. And by not going in too dark right now, I can get a little better blends and I can make adjustments if I need to. So once I'm done with this light, then we just start back over. Now you can go dark to light, and then now I could go in and go light to dark. So I could go that medium tone if I wanted to. But instead I decided I didn't have enough of a contrast. So I brought in the dark teal to put in the deepest shadows. So this will now be my darkest. I do feel like that is something for me in pictures that I like. I like a lot of value contrast, meaning a lot of dark to light. So, so in this case, I just felt like that the next color, whatever it is, the dark turquoise or whatever, it just wasn't quite dark enough to give me the kind of contrast I was looking for. I think this is a very undervalued, whether you want to call it technique or concept or whatever. But I felt like the blend was really nice between the ocean green, the jade green, and the aqua blue or whatever it was. It was really nice, but I do like kind of the contrast here with that dark teal. I also like that it's a more grungy color, which I think fits a little better with the bottom, that dark brown that I added at the bottom of the Cairo. And I think that's where I was kind of struggling in doing these buildings, is I didn't want them to be all samey, meaning one way to do this picture is to basically pick a color, like a beige or something, or whatever, a peach, and color all the buildings that color. And then it can make for a very cohesive palette and a really nice picture. But I really wanted to bring in a little bit of color, but I didn't want it to be that bright. So like I thought about bringing in an orange, and every time I looked at it, I felt like the orange was too bright. I like the more muted tones or grayed out tones that I'm using here with that dark teal and that dark brown and the, what is it, Mars violet or Mars red, something like that, that you see there. Okay, now here I just happen to have a luminance white right next to me, so that's what I used. You could use a Prisma white. You could even use the Arrtx white. But I tend to generally use either the luminance, what's the other one? I have a Holbein white, I have a Derwent drawing white, and I have a Prisma white. Those are my 4 favorites, but I am just trying to add a little bit of white up there, and you can see I didn't really leave enough. It's not awful, but I probably should have left a little bit more. But here I'm just redefining everything, and like I said, at the very end, I will add the Posca. So the choice is yours depending on what kind of look you want. I tend to think Rita Berman's books, for me, are very whimsical, and I feel like white Posca is a fun accent to whimsy. If I'm coloring a more realistic page, or even like if the other elements on the page don't have a lot of pop of white, then I prefer to not use it. But I think I tend to use it a lot in this book. So, okay, while I continue to do that, let's get into our first fun fact about Cairo. Cairo's the largest city in the Arab world in the Middle East. It's the capital of Egypt, and it is near the, well, it's 120 kilometers west of the Suez Canal and 165 kilometers south of the Mediterranean Sea. It is often associated with ancient Egypt simply because the Giza pyramids are nestled within its geographical limits, as is the ancient city of Memphis. Now we're going to start on our boat, so make sure you get this little piece of sea there. I always forget something. You can just count on it, right right, chat? Right, community? So make sure you get those when you're doing the blue. But I'm just going to pull in those same reds into the boat. So next up is the River Nile. It is the longest river in the world. And some say that the Amazon's slightly larger. However, it's still recorded as being the longest, the Nile, and it flows right through Cairo. Okay, in fact, we are going to talk about the Nile more, so I'm not going to get into really any stats right now. Cairo is believed to be the genesis of mankind, and it's based on the fact that the ancient civilization buildings, artifacts that are found there are, from a modern day point of view, highly progressive in with respect to time. It is the second most populous urban city in Africa. It's estimated that as of 2021, there's 21.3 million people. It is the city with the largest population in the Arab world and the second most populous city in Africa. Cairo sustains the only remaining ancient wonder of the world, which is the pyramid. And the pyramid was built, the Great Pyramid of Giza. And that pyramid was built for King Khufu as a tomb. All aspects of this pyramid, such as its size, construction, engineering, is a wonder to behold. In Islamic Cairo, Al-Azhar Mosque is an Egyptian mosque that was the first mosque built in Cairo. It was in the Fatimid dynasty in 970 for the newly formed capital city. Cairo got the title City of 1,000 Minarets, and this mosque exhibits various architectural styles formed over the years due to its extensions. Cairo embraces one of the tallest structures made by human hands. The still existing Great Pyramid of Giza is one of the tallest structures built by human hands, with a height of 481 feet, which is 146.7 meters. And the pyramids are nestled in the Giza necropolis, along with two other notable pyramids. The construction of this pyramid took about 20 years, and more than 2 million blocks of stone were used for this. It enjoyed the title of the tallest structure in the world, created by human hands, until 1311, when the construction of the Lincoln Cathedral, which is 525 feet, was completed, and enjoys this status for more than 3,500 years. So if you want more information on that, we did do a page when we did our pyramid page. I talk a lot about those different pyramids, how they're made and stuff. Cairo has one of the oldest universities in the world, which is the Al-Azhar University. It is the second largest higher learning institution in the world. It was established in 975 AD, and it was the only one providing educational degrees in Egypt at that time. Students need to enroll themselves here to acquire a degree in Islamic law or other courses. It is the only university in Egypt that is functional like a modern university in the present world, and it is still flourishing and offers various UG, PG, and graduate study programs. Now back on screen, I use this turquoise gray to do my palm trees, because once again, I'm really not wanting these I want the turquoise to really be the vibrant color on the page, meaning the clouds and the river. And then I want the the city to be kind of nestled in that. And so I don't want these palm trees to really detract or be any sort of focal point to this page. Now, you could make these the focal point for sure. You could choose to really make the boats the focal point and put everything else in the background. So it really just depends on the look you're going for. But I don't do a whole lot with these. I think I add a little bit of dark gray, which I don't think I added. I forgot I used it. When I was putting my pencils away, I looked at it and said, I didn't use that on anything. So I didn't put it on the pencil sheet, but prepare yourself. You'll probably need, if memory serves, a 30% cool gray, just for the little, what are they called? Like down the center and that kind of stuff. Okay, next it is believed that Cairo has hosted the Holy Family. And by the Holy Family, we mean the Virgin Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus. And a lot of Christian communities believe that they visited in Old Cairo and took refuge in a cave that is the site of Saint Sergius and Bacchus Church, or the Church of Abu Surga. And for those of you new to the channel, I can't pronounce anything, so it's always a crapshoot. So feel free to giggle out loud if you if you know how to pronounce these things and I'm wildly off. Ask Christine how I first said her name. She's French. You can imagine. She spit out her pop with the first time she heard it. But the Holy Family in Egypt was on a pious journey to spread the message of God. Remarkably, the Coptic Cairo was a stamping ground for Christianity in Egypt before and during the Islamic era. Cairo is home to one of the largest museums in the Middle East, with the world's biggest collection of Egyptian antiquities. One of the largest museums is in Cairo City. It is called the Museum of Cairo, or the Egyptian Museum. Many archaeological sites in Cairo have many precious artifacts that were subject to looting or despoiling. Hence, the Museum of Cairo brought more than 120,000 artifacts together into a protected place. Around 120,000 items, including the renowned King Tutankhamun collection, are on exhibit, and the rest are sheltered in storerooms. As a side note, when I lived in Germany, I had the opportunity to go to a museum in Berlin that was hosting the King Tut collection, or at least parts of it. So I got to see some of that in person, and it is actually, like, when you see pictures, it just doesn't do it justice. I am forever grateful of my chance to go travel and see parts of the world, because living in the United States, everything is new. I mean, relatively speaking, we don't have ancient artifacts. We don't have old buildings. And when you go and see those, you just really appreciate the history more. And I do feel like I would love to see a lot of it again, because I saw it through, how old was I? 21. I was about 20 to 23 during that period. And I think you view the world through an entirely different lens than you do when you're in your 50s. And I've talked to my son about it, because originally I always wanted to take him, because he was born in Munich, Germany, back to Munich and show him where he was born and show him some of the, like, where I lived and things like that. And, you know, he goes, when I go to Europe, he goes, I just want to go by myself, because he just wants to go on a history tour. He's like, I want to do all the things that most people would find really boring. He doesn't want to go see, the Black Forest clocks. He doesn't want to go see, like, the maybe the Neuschwanstein Castle. He wants to really engage in a lot of the ancient history on a much more intellectual level. Not that he's saying I'm dumb, but I don't have the love of history that he does. I can appreciate it, but he can actually recite it and is knowledgeable on it. And I respect that and admire that in both my boys. And I absolutely love when they get together and a random topic comes up of some sort of historical thing and they both nerd out with each other. It just amuses me. And I feel like the way they talk, I actually learn a lot just listening to them. And for two boys that never got along, it also warms my heart to see them interacting on a very positive way. So, moms of boys, I'm sure you understand. Or girls, I'm sure. I was an only child, so I didn't really appreciate all of the sibling rivalry until I had to. One of the tallest freestanding structures ever in Africa is in Cairo. It is called the Cairo Tower. It is an independent concrete tower built in Cairo. It's on an Gezira Island in the River Nile near downtown Cairo. It's one of the most famous modern monuments in Cairo and is probably considered the second most famous landmark in Egypt after the pyramids of Giza. It's 614 feet tall and was considered the tallest structure in Egypt and North Africa for about 50 years. Across the entire African continent, it remained the tallest structure for 10 years until in 1971, in which the Hillbrow Tower in South Africa outstripped the Cairo Tower of its title. Cairo is a city of festivals. Now here, once again, I'm just doing a little gradient, just with the camel, that Bavarian cream, sometimes it's number 91, the kind of the brownish color. So that's all I'm doing here. Cairo is a city of festivals. They have unique and vibrant festivals, often festivals of art, music, film, culture, food, fashion, sports, and more. They even include something called the Cairo Bites, which is an international cuisine fest. They have a jazz festival, a fashion festival. I think that would be fun to see some of those. Cairo has a unique shape. It is somewhat fan-shaped that is expanded in the north where the valley combines to the delta, and the river valley is segmented between desert cliffs. It's set along the Nile River, and throughout the past centuries, the city expanded westward as a dwindling river channel left the land flood-free. However, Cairo is expanded to the north, south, and on a western bank of the Nile due to elevated demand. That's kind of everywhere, isn't it? Seems like it. Cairo has only 2 main seasons across the year. There are roughly 8 months of summer and 4 months of winter. In the summer season, the hottest months are June, July, and August, in which the temperatures are 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and the minimum is 21 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So very warm, even at night. Notably, the temperatures can reach up to 47 degrees Celsius, which is 117 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot. And in the winter season, the days are warm and dry, and the intense Tropic of Cancer sun, but the nights are cool and humid and often receive fresh breezes from the Nile. The average maximum temperature in January and February is 67 degrees Fahrenheit, 19 degrees Celsius, and the average daily minimum is 8 degrees Celsius, which is 47 degrees Fahrenheit. So the winters are cool, but not brutal. Now, I do feel like, depending on the humidity, they could feel colder. Cairo is the primary center for economic production and financial control. Cairo Metro is one of the only 2 metros in Africa and is considered the 15th busiest metro across the globe. There are only 2 metro networks for transportation in the African continent, one in Cairo and another in Algiers, Algeria. The Cairo Metro network is very popular. It observes beyond 1 billion annual passenger rides. It has 3 stops for transfer and more than 65 stations. The most crowded stations include El Shahoda, Sadat, and Ataba. It is highly effective and reasonable medium of transportation. Some cars in the Cairo Metro network are entirely devoted to women. Some exclusive women-only carts in the Cairo Metro are dedicated just to women. They have red stickers and they are reserved for women all day round. Besides, others marked with green stickers are reserved for women from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The authorities also organizing training courses for women to drive trains. This step is taken to empower the women in Egypt and make them a part of various jobs that were earlier reserved for men only. Any questions about what you're seeing? Oh, I do wish we were live so that we could all chat together. I feel like the kind of coloring I'm doing right now is pretty straightforward. The biggest challenge, once again, I felt like was just picking, did I want to do this beige brown throughout the whole thing? And I really didn't. But then how do you incorporate color without incorporating too much color? And so what you don't see is me pausing along the way to be like, okay, now what? Okay, now what? And I even reached out to Christine and said, hey, what do you think? And she was like, well, what about some sunset colors? And that's where I decided to kind of go with the peach that you're going to be seeing. I ended up not really adding, like I said, the oranges, and I've talked about that, but I do really like the peach. And so that was a little bit of a stem off from our conversation. And I absolutely enjoy chatting with fellow colorists about some different options. Now here I thought I would take a moment and get the blue on the page because this is before I talked to Christine and I was just a little stuck. So when you're stuck, you just color what you know. And I knew that I wanted to do these clouds in essentially the same colors as I did the river. So I'm just going in just like I did with the river and going into the deepest kind of corner areas, not necessarily like not all the bottoms, but like more in the corners with this deep color, and then moving out to, once again, leave a little bit of white towards the edge. A conscious decision I made towards the end of this page, but I'm going to talk about it now, is when I put the white on, I purposely chose to keep the black lines. I put my white underneath that black line. I can't really tell you 100% why I did this. It's just more of a stylistic decision that you can make. It does change the look when you eliminate the black lines. However, this was a page that had a lot of black lines and a lot of black lines that I wasn't willing to go and eliminate, such as on the buildings and on the boats and on the letters. And so I felt it would look a little off to get rid of the clouds and the water's white black lines. But that's something that you can play around with and see if you agree. This is just how I came to that decision when I was adding the white, and I want to talk about it now because I'm probably going to be chatting about something else when it pops up, because I think that's at the very end anyway. But I find it helpful when I'm watching somebody and I think to myself, well, why did they choose that color? Why did they use that color? Why did they not do this? Or why did they do that? And so when I can, I try and add that for y'all. Okay. Cairo embraces the oldest and largest film and music industries in the Middle East. They are renowned for its musical and dramatic talent and as the site of revitalization in an Arab theater. Cairo is referred to as the Hollywood of the Middle East. A majority of Arabic films are produced by Egyptian companies in this city. Many Middle Eastern and North African films are also pictured here. Most of the main offices for their celebrities are there. The city has numerous film houses, old cinemas, cultural centers, and new theaters to host music shows and screen international films and documentaries. Cairo previously belonged to Napoleon, but only for a short duration. It's a strange but true fact that Cairo was once under the administration of Emperor Napoleon. However, it only lasted about 3 years. It seemed unbelievable at the time that the Ottoman Empire actually lost the city to Napoleon, but the Ottoman Empire regained it via its counterstroke. Cairo was Britain's base of operations. In the late 19th century, when the British colonized Egypt, they set up tents in Cairo and conveniently ruled Egypt from there. Notably, the extensive transportation network of this country, which connects most of the urban centers in the country with Cairo, was laid out by the British. The British rulers worked remotely in Cairo until post-World War I, specifically from 1914 to 1918. Cairo was the birthplace of the first Arab writer to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. I am not even, guys, if you're interested, you're going to have to look it up because I can't even fathom a guess to who it was. But he was born in 1911 in Cairo. And apologies. Cairo has the world's largest food court in the world. It's called the Oasis Food Court by Oasis Restaurants and Entertainment, and it has set the record for arranging the largest food court in the world. Spread out over 41,000 square miles and embracing a host of varied delicacies to taste, it is indeed a retreat for foodies. Notably, Oasis Food Court Square has 25 restaurants and seat arrangements for up to 4,223 guests at once. Here, visitors can thoroughly relax, enjoy a meal, and watch movies within the court while the kids accompanying them can have fun in the charming kids zone. That, I would be down for that. I bet that's amazing. They used to have a place in Denver called the Yum Yum Tree, which was like a big food court. And I remember as a kid, we went there and everybody came back with like food from all over the world. So it wasn't just local cuisine. It was, there was a steak place and a Chinese restaurant and German food and, you name it, it was there. Cairo offers one of the best shopping experiences in the world. The bazaar is one of the best places. Let's see. It's a famous Middle Eastern bazaar in the heart of historic Cairo that has a maze-like complex of narrow lanes. You must divert through the main thoroughfare to the surrounding alleyways next to Hussein Square to reach here. Numerous crowds and colorful small shops cluttered workshops there, and the market is one of the best places to buy traditional Egyptian gifts at reasonable prices. Antiquities, beautiful metal lampshades, and locally woven fabrics are also available there. I do believe in this book we have pictures of the bazaar that we'll be coloring, so maybe we can learn more about it then. Okay. Okay, here. Oh, I was wrong on both accounts. So warm gray 50, not cool gray 30. Anyway, let's talk about the Nile River, about how long it is and maybe some fun little facts, and then we'll get into what little critters live along there. So the length of the Nile River is approximately 6,650 kilometers, which is 4,132 miles long. It's believed to be the longest river in the world. A lot of the controversy is about where do you start measuring the beginning and the end, right? And so there was like one survey where these guys said, no, the Amazon is actually a few feet longer, but the survey was never published. And so at this point, we just consider the Nile the largest one. It's located in Africa, and the Nile lies in the following countries: Kenya, Eritrea, Congo, Burundi, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. The Nile River has huge significance in regards to ancient Egypt, and most of ancient Egypt's historical sites are located along its banks in cities such as Luxor and Cairo. In 2004, the White Nile expedition became the first to navigate the entire length of the Nile River. It began in Uganda and finished in Rosetta, taking 4 months and 2 weeks to complete. 4 months and 2 weeks of being on a river. Hope they had a comfy boat. The Nile Delta and the North Egypt is where the Nile River drains in the Mediterranean Sea. It's about 100 miles in length and spreads out over 149 miles of coastline. It's rich in agriculture and has been farmed for thousands of years. Around 40 million people, half of Egypt's population, live in the Nile Delta region. In 1787, the famous Rosetta Stone was found in the Nile Delta. In the city of Rosetta. This ancient Egyptian artifact played a key role in modern understanding of Egyptian hieroglyphics. The Aswan High Dam was built in 1970 to help regulate flooding of the Nile River. Before the Aswan Dam was built, years that featured high levels of water could wipe out entire crops, while years of low water level could produce famines and drought. The dam helps control the water levels. So let's talk about some of the Nile River's uses. It is a vital resource for people in northern Africa, to include irrigation. It has provided water for thousands of years into the surrounding deserts and agricultural land. It provides drinking water for millions of people. It's an important resource for fishing. It is used to generate hydroelectric power. The Nile has been used for transportation route for thousands of years. The Nile is a popular destination for tourists. The Nile offers a window into the past and shapes the ancient Egyptians' region, culture, and view of the world. And the Nile is home to many animals, including hippos, Nile crocodiles, and many species of fish and birds. 95% of Egyptians live within miles of the Nile. Canals bring water from the Nile to irrigate farms and support cities. So that's kind of cool. Let's see if there's anything else here before we move on to the critters. There are 2 tributaries or branches. Hold on, they want to know about cookies. I don't want their cookies. So they have 2 main tributaries, which are branches, which meet the Nile. One tributary is called the White Nile, which starts in South Sudan, and the other is called the Blue Nile, which starts in Ethiopia. The Blue and White Nile merge together in the city of Khartoum in Sudan, and from there the river continues to flow through North Egypt and finally into the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the plants and animals along the Nile. Let's see. So bamboo. Some of the areas along the Nile's origin are home to tropical rainforests, and bamboo is one of the plants and trees found there. They're able to grow extremely fast, up to 1 foot or more per day, which I had heard that before. Isn't that crazy to think that something could grow that fast? Banana trees, they're found in the tropical rainforests upstream, up near the origin of the Nile. There's very little genetic diversity in domesticated banana plants, making them vulnerable to pests and diseases. Hippopotamus. The hippopotamus is only in the swampy Al Sud region of the South Sudan and farther south. A male hippopotamus is typically about 3.5 or 11.5 feet long by 5 feet tall and 3.5 tons, which, or 3,200 kilograms. So that's crazy to think about. The lungfish is found far upstream in Lake Victoria. Unlike most species of fish, lungfish either have 1 or 2 lungs, which they use to breathe air. Monitor lizards can be found in the Nile River basin. They're among the largest lizards in Africa, with some averaging around 6 feet in length once fully grown. I don't know if you can hear Ellie, but her daddy just brought her home and had to run an errand without her, and she is just so sad. She understands if he's wearing a brown uniform, because he works for UPS, if he's wearing a brown uniform, she's totally fine. She's like, hey, going to work, okay, see you later, Daddy. But if he is in street clothes and he leaves without her, she is not happy. Okay, so the Nile crocodile. It can be found in most parts of the river. Crocodiles in general are the largest and heaviest reptiles in the world, and the Nile crocodile is one of the largest crocodilian species, reaching lengths up to 20 feet long. Wowzers. I would not want to run across a crocodile 20 feet long. So back on the page, I have finally decided to add some golden domes. And so I end up putting just a few down, and then I end up putting some peach colors in, and then I'm going to add more gold. So this is where things get a little more sporadic as far as like adding these colors in and not adding them all at a time. So if you want to, you can cheat, look ahead or look back, because I do show the picture at the beginning, so that you can maybe color all of those at once if you would like. I'm not going to guarantee that I use the same combination, but generally speaking, I probably do. Okay, the Nile perch. Now this, I am looking at a picture and I am actually astonished. Where I'm from, perch are small but tasty little fish. But they're like pan-sized fish. They're 6 inches or so. The Nile perch, which is found in the lower Nile River system, is a freshwater fish that can grow to be quite large, weighing up to 440 pounds and measuring 2 meters in length or 6.6 feet. I mean, I want you to picture that in your mind, y'all. That is like, picture a 6-foot man and like 4 6-foot men standing side by side. That's about what it would be. That was crazy. Or maybe 3. I guess if they each weighed 150 pounds, that'd be 450 pounds. So no hyperbole, Wendy. No exaggerating. Just 3 grown men's worth of fish. Okay. The papyrus plant is found on the Nile River. Not only did the ancient Egyptians famously use the stem of the papyrus plants to make paper, they also used it to make sails, cloth, mats, and cords. Soft-shell turtles. They're characterized by its flattened shell. They can be found in the Nile River basin. The flattened shell is hydrodynamically efficient and contributes to the soft-shell turtle's ability to swim rapidly. Tigerfish. Tigerfish is found in the lower Nile River system. It has dagger-like teeth that protrude when its mouth is closed, and it's known for being fierce, whether it is predator or prey. And this was also a very large fish. Okay, so here's where I'm putting in the salmon colors. I really like the pinky, dusky tones that these are. They're not a real bright pink, and I think they go really well with the darker red tones that I used. But then they have a little bit of vibrancy, much like the yellows. Now, I didn't necessarily have like a hard and fast rule as to which building got which color. It's one of those things that I just was, I tried not to put too many in a row together. I tried to make them different and yet similar, if that makes sense. There I grabbed the wrong pencil. You ever do that? I was using the darkest one. In the end, it worked out fine, but pay attention, Wendy. Okay. The last one is water hyacinth, and it originated in South America, but it's become an invasive species in the Nile region. Once it was introduced to the Nile River system, it spread rapidly and has threatened the stability of local fishing-based economies, hindered boat travel in infested areas, and interfered with generation of hydroelectric power. So, we have to be really careful about certain plants and animals alike, because they can really change an ecosystem of an area. These look a lot like maybe lily pad type of things, and I'm sure they're a little bit viney, almost like what's this? A creeping Jenny. Have you ever put creeping Jenny in your flower? And it's a great ground cover, right? But it will definitely take over an area if unchecked. So I can see where this looks like it would be something similar. Okay, so this article is 100 facts about ancient Egypt you should know before visiting its popular cities. So some of these we may have heard. They were a hierarchical society. Pharaohs were considered gods, followed by nobles, then priests, then farmers, then artisans, and then slaves. Egyptians believed in preserving the body for the afterlife, hence the elaborate mummification process. Their intricate writing system used pictures and symbols to represent sound and words, and it was called hieroglyphics. Both men and women wore kohl for beauty and sun protection, and green eye makeup symbolized rebirth. Egyptians revered cats as protectors and even worshipped Bastet, a cat-headed goddess. Bastet, I think is how it's said. Cleopatra's reign. Cleopatra VII, the last active pharaoh, ruled for 22 years and was known for her intelligence and political cunning. Egyptians ate mainly bread, vegetables, and fruits, and enjoyed beer brewed from barley. Senet, a board game similar to checkers, and music were popular forms of entertainment. Because I'm going to be doing a lot of coloring with these three colors, I am just basically showing you, and they're all the same. I'm using the dark on the bottom, and then I'm blending out to the lightest. They set bones, treated wounds with honey, and used herbs for various ailments. Egyptians traded with neighboring kingdoms like Nubia, Punt, and the Near East for resources and goods. They built strong armies, they used bows and arrows, and expanded their empire. Foreign influences such as Greek and Roman cultures influenced Egyptian art, religion, and architecture. Cleopatra formed alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and she played a significant role in Roman politics. The impact of ancient Egypt is evident in art, literature, mathematics, architecture, and our understanding of civilization. Egyptians believed in creatures like hippopotamuses with magical powers, gods with animal heads, phoenixes, and sphinxes. The symbol of the Eye of Horus represents healing, royal protection, and royal power. It was often used in their artwork and in their amulets. Scarab beetles were revered for their regenerative abilities, and they were associated with rebirth and the afterlife. Organs were removed during mummification and stored in 4 jars representing different gods and goddesses. The Egyptians often wore amulets for protection, connection to the god, and for good luck. Scribes were highly respected and held a monopoly on literacy and were responsible for the record-keeping and administrative tasks. Many Egyptians enjoyed wrestling, swimming, running, and board games like Senet and Mayhem. My apologies if any of this sounds duplicated. I don't know why, but halfway through the voiceover of this, my program decided to use a different microphone, and I literally sounded like the teacher in the Peanuts cartoon. So I am having to re-voice over this last 45 minutes to an hour, which, let me just say, is exhausting. But I love y'all, and I didn't want you to have to listen to poor audio because there's not much worse. So, where are we at? Okay. Many Egyptians enjoyed wrestling, swimming, running, and board games like Senet and Mayhem. Music played a vital role in religious ceremonies and celebrations, and dancers often performed during festivals and rituals. The Egyptian diet is largely bread, barley, lentils, fruits, and vegetables. Meat and fish were eaten only on occasion. Children were valued and received education. Families lived in simple houses made of mud brick, and marriage was common. Egyptians often kept dogs, birds, monkeys, and cats as pets, and had oxen and donkeys for farming and transportation. Egyptians placed an importance on being clean. They bathed regularly in the Nile and used ointments and perfumes. Festivals, storytelling, games, and music provided most of the entertainment, while wealthy Egyptians also enjoyed boating and hunting. Slavery was existent in ancient Egypt, with prisoners of war and debt slaves performing various tasks, although it wasn't as central as in some other societies. Harps, drums, flutes, lutes, and sistrums were popular instruments in religious ceremonies and everyday entertainment. They liked to craft intricate jewelry using glass beads, gemstones, and gold, and often wore colorful wigs, clothing, and accessories. Sorry, I have a touch of the hiccups. Egyptians created lifelike statues of pharaohs, gods, goddesses, and they made them out of granite, wood, and basalt. Egyptians mastered weaving techniques, creating linen garments, tapestries, wall hangings, and they used dyes and intricate patterns to do so. Most of their furniture was wooden. They decorated with pottery, colorful carpets, and baskets were used for storage and transportation. Temples served as places of worship, a place for religious ceremonies, housing statues of gods and goddesses, and a place to provide offerings. Bastet, the cat goddess, and Thoth, the ibis god of wisdom, and Sobek, the crocodile god, were among many of the worship deities. Egyptians often held vibrant festivals throughout the year, and they were often connected to agricultural events such as Opet or Hebsed. Food, drink, and prayers were offered to the deities in exchange for favor, protection, and a successful afterlife. The afterlife was extremely important to Egyptians, and they preserved the body through mummification, and because they believed it would provide an afterlife journey and reincarnation. The pyramids remain iconic symbols of ancient Egypt's engineering prowess and connection to the divine. In the 19th century, hieroglyphics were deciphered, and they unlocked a massive amount of information about ancient Egyptian history, culture, and beliefs. Their contributions to mathematics, geometry, astronomy laid the foundation for future scientific developments. Egyptian myth and legends have influenced literature, movies, artistic creations throughout history. So these are just some little tidbits. Cleopatra spoke 9 languages, making her a skilled diplomat and politician. Many Egyptians used coal, which contained lead, which could be very harmful to their health. However, they actually believe it made their eyesight better and cured eye infections. Well, yeah, it probably killed a lot of things, killed the bacteria. They even mummified their beloved cats and built cemeteries dedicated to them. Beards were symbols of power and masculinity, and false beards were worn by male pharaohs during the ceremonies. No one knows the exact cause of Cleopatra's death. It is debated amongst scholars, but many believe she may have committed suicide by a snake bite, namely an asp. Okay. Many mummies remain unidentified, offering potential discoveries and insights into the lives of ordinary Egyptians. The Egyptian Museum in Cairo is home to an extensive collection of artifacts. I think we talked about this earlier. The Egyptian Museum is a treasure trove for anyone interested in ancient Egypt. New discoveries continue to shed light on ancient Egypt, offering fresh perspectives on their history, technology, and daily lives. Monumental gift. These two obelisks, originally adorned to the entrance of the Temple of Luxor in Karnak, Egypt, Cleopatra VII gifted them to Rome in the 1st century BC, and they were later erected in different locations. The Rosetta Stone. This black basalt slab, discovered in 1799 by French troops, holds the key to deciphering hieroglyphics. Its feature inscriptions in 3 languages: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and ancient Greek. Okay, I found one more page featuring Egyptian facts. As of 2023, Egypt has nearly 55.4 million Facebook users. Egypt has the largest Arabic population in the world. Arab Republic of Egypt is the formal name of Egypt. Approximately 90% of Egyptians are Muslim, primarily Sunni, 9% are Coptic, and 1% are Christian. Pharaoh Pepi II had the longest reign in history, 94 years. He became Egypt's king when he was only 6 years old. Pharaoh Pepi II allegedly would smear naked slaves with honey to attract flies away from him. Well, that's just not very nice. The shape of Egyptian pyramids is thought to have been inspired by the spreading rays of the sun. The literacy rate for Egyptian men is 83% and 59.4% for women. 83% for men, 59.4% of women. On average, only an inch of rain falls in Egypt per year. That's not a lot. It's very, very dry. As of 2024, Egypt's population is around 115 million. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built as a burial place for King Khufu and took more than 20 years to build. It is built from over 200 million. Let me say that again. It is built from over 2 million blocks of limestone, each weighing as much as 2.5 elephants. It stands about 460 feet high. That was me clapping, trying to get, there's like a little gnat or something flying around. Okay, so it's taller than the Statue of Liberty, and the base takes up almost as much space as 5 football fields. I find these kind of things very helpful when I'm picturing how big something is, because to say to me that something's 460 feet high, it doesn't mean a lot. I mean, I get that it's high, I get that it's a lot, but then when I hear that it's actually taller than the Statue of Liberty, that puts it into a little bit of perspective. And when I hear the base is 5 football fields, that puts it in a very big perspective because I can picture in my mind what a football field looks like. Does that happen to you? Like, I love when people talk like this. Okay. I think we talked about the mummification a lot. So Ramses II is often considered the greatest pharaoh. He ruled Egypt for 60 years, and he was the only one to carry the title the Great after his name. He had over 90 children, approximately 56 boys and 44 girls. He had 8 official wives and nearly 100 concubines. He also had red hair, which was associated with the god Seth. Now, didn't we hear that the god Seth was like, I thought he was like an evil god. Maybe. Ancient Egyptian women had more rights and privileges than most other women in the ancient world. For example, they could own property, carry out business deals, and initiate divorce. They could even become doctors or priestesses if they came from wealthy families. The Egyptians had 3 different calendars: an everyday farming calendar, an astronomical calendar, and a lunar calendar. The 365-day farming calendar was made up of 3 seasons of 4 months, whereas we have 4 seasons of 3 months. But the astronomical calendar was based on observations of the star Sirius, which reappeared every year at the start of the flood season. Finally, priests kept a lunar calendar that told them when to perform ceremonies for the moon god Hansu. Ancient Egyptians worshipped more than 1,000 different gods and goddesses. The most important god of all was Ra, the sun god. Tourism comprises 12% of the workforce in Egypt. The Sahara Desert at one time was a lush grassland and savanna. Overgrazing and/or climate change in 8000 BC began to change the area from a pastoral land to desert. Now it is the world's largest hot desert at over 3,630,000 square miles, roughly the size of the United States. See, once again, helpful information, right? Antarctica is considered the largest desert of any type in the world, which is interesting because I've never considered the Antarctic or the Antarctica to be a desert. Maybe because I'm an idiot, or maybe just because I never thought about it. But in my mind, like, deserts are sandy and hot, right? Okay, looking at the page right now, so I wanted to do those buildings in the light yellow because I wanted them to really pop and contrast to the word Cairo. And when I first laid down that goldenrod on that thin banner behind the letters, I just felt like it didn't pop out enough, so I used the dark brown. So I guess what I'm saying here is don't be afraid to change your mind, or if you don't like something, just color over it or use your eraser to make changes. Okay. The life expectancy of Egyptians is approximately 72.66 years, which ranks 124th in the world. The life expectancy of males is 70.07 and females is 75.38. Monaco has the world's highest life expectancy at 89.73, and the United States is 50th with a life expectancy of 78.37. The fertility rate in Egypt is 2.9 children per woman. It's the 66th highest fertility rate in the world. Niger ranks first with 7.6 children per woman, and the United States is 124th with 2.06 children per woman. I guess I'm very average. I had exactly 2, not 2.06, unless you're counting Ellie. I guess she can be 0.06. So maybe I'm perfectly in alignment. Egypt is the 30th largest country in the world by area, slightly 3 times larger than New Mexico. And Egypt's area is 386,560 square miles. Ancient Egyptians were the first people to have a year consisting of 365 days divided into 12 months, and they also invented clocks. I didn't know that. After all of this, that's a new fact. To stay cool and avoid lice, both men and women in ancient Egypt shaved their heads and most often wore wigs. In fact, wigs indicated social status. Rich people wore wigs made from human hair, while poor people wore wigs made from wool or vegetable fiber. We talked about the river, talked about flooding, talked about the dam. The Copts are, C-O-P-T-S, Copts are the largest Christian community in Egypt and in the Middle East. Because Christianity was the main religion in Egypt between the 4th and 6th centuries, the term Copt originally meant all Egyptians. In France, a glass pyramid stands outside the famous Louvre Museum as a tribute to the ancient Egyptians and their amazing world. Fly swatters made from giraffe tails were a popular fashion item in ancient Egypt. Before an ancient Egyptian scribe wrote anything, he always poured out some water mixed with ink as an offering to the god Thoth, the messenger of the gods and a patron of scribes and learning. Egyptians who could write were believed to have power from the gods. They believed that that Thoth invented writing and passed its secrets to the humans. His symbols were a bird called an ibis and a baboon. Just 150 years ago, Americans and Europeans believed that mummies had great healing powers, and they ground up the mummies into powder and used it as a medicine for all kinds of diseases. That is wild. Ugh. Okay, back on the page, I am just adding a little bit of light color here to these sails, and then I'm going to go in with the darker, the same color combination to add a little bit of depth and shading, right, with camel and the light brown shade. The Great Pyramid of Giza has vents pointing to the constellation Orion, so the mummy spirit could fly straight up to the gods. In ancient Egypt, every big city supported one favorite god, similar to people who support football teams today. Okay, so that's an interesting thought to have. Okay, let's see what else. Mexico, not Egypt, has the largest pyramid in the world in terms of volume. So the Egypt's pyramid is taller, but it covers less acreage. And the Cholula pyramid has a volume of 4,300,000 cubic yards, while the Great Pyramid has 3,360,000 cubic yards. So it is quite a bit smaller. The pyramids of Egypt are not only the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, they're the only ones to survive today. An Arab proverb captures the pyramids' endurance. Man fears time, yet time fears the pyramids. The other 6 wonders are the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, the mausoleum of Halicarnassus, the Colossus of Rhodes, and the lighthouse of Alexandria. I just want you to know that I really love you guys because I put myself up for ridicule week after week for you because I cannot read these words. Okay. Ancient Egyptian tomb builders had their own guarded villages. They were very well fed and looked after because the work was so important. The ancient obelisk known as Cleopatra's Needle has suffered more damage in the 125 years it has stood in New York City from pollution and weather than the thousands of years it stood in Egypt. Wow. That doesn't surprise me, but it's still kind of a wow. Hippos were considered bad omens and were associated with the evil god Seth. See, I told you I thought he was evil. They were more dangerous than crocodiles, and they often capsized boats traveling to the Nile. So, was Ramses II considered like an evil pharaoh? Or are they just saying he looked like the evil god Seth? I have questions. Maybe one of you knowledgeable people can help me out. In Egypt, even the girls are considered a blessing. The Greeks, who sometimes left unwanted infants, most often girls, outside to die, were shocked to discover the Egypts did not do this. Well, I would hope not. To keep the hook shape of Ramses II's nose from collapsing, embalmers stuffed his nostrils with peppercorns. Better hope he doesn't sneeze in the afterlife. Some people blame the sinking of the Titanic on a mummified Egyptian princess that the ship was transporting. Now here I'm just going through all of the little windows and using this terracotta color. Okay. If the Great Pyramid were chopped into 12-inch cubes, there would be enough cubes to circle the moon almost 3 times. Okay, so I think the last fact I'm going to end on is ancient Egyptians kept such good flood records on the Nile that scientists today use their data to better understand rainfall patterns. I mean, it's pretty amazing if you really think about how long ago this was and the amount of knowledge that they possessed. Okay, we are definitely getting closer to the end, y'all. Now, what I'm doing here is every place that I'm going to use my gold glitter gel pen, I am going to go ahead and cover it with a layer of gold or like a yellow underneath so that no white peeks out if I miss a spot. Now, if you're watching this and doing the follow along or the color along, you're actually coloring it, I highly suggest you do not use the gold pen at this time. Just simply move on from this step, and while I'm using the gold glitter pen, skip ahead to where I'm using the white Posca. Because as you're going to see, I smear this pen everywhere. I am trying very hard to work from left to right, doing a good job of that. But here's what happened. I think that because I laid down this on top of the Arrtx pencils, which I don't know whether they're wax or oil, it just took them a little longer to dry than if they were maybe on the plain paper. This is speculation on my part, but I normally don't have a hard time. Yes, you have to wait for them to dry for a minute. I let this stuff dry. At this point, you're going to see I'm going to do this bottom layer, and then I'm going to flip my book over, and I'm going to work on the other one and work from left to right. But you're going to find that, like, if I miss a spot, it smears. And then I actually stop the video. I actually stopped the video before I flip my book, and I let it dry. And then I flip the book, and I'm working on it now. And it's still wet. And so what happens is, because I'm Wendy, I always miss a little doodad here or there. So then I try and put it in, and I stick my hand in it and I smear it. And you see, I'm trying to like do the pinky thing and not get it in there. I don't do too bad at this point, but you're going to see in a minute. It's a mess. So a couple of things that I do is after I smear it, I just like accept the fact that I smeared it and move on, and I let it dry, and then I'm going to go in and try and erase it, and that will also erase the colored pencil, so then I'll need to lay down the colored pencil. At this point, I have let it dry for 5, maybe even 10 minutes. It was quite a lot. And as I'm putting my hand down, you are seeing I am smearing this gold, and it's just such a mess. Unfortunately, I guess you can see up in the palm trees where I've smeared it. I guess no video would be complete without the blooper reel, right? I mean, we made it with less than 5 minutes to go. So good job, Wendy. But anyway, so the way I combat that is I go in and I use my eraser. I erase it. That's going to erase the colored pencil as well. I thought I had recorded it. I guess I didn't. I was very frustrated at this point. And so I erase it and I just fill the color back in, and then I reapply the gel, and I pretty much let it sit overnight. This video has been insane with the struggling, complete with second voiceover, right? Some days are just like that. Life's a country and western dance, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But eventually you get where you're going. So the last thing that I will note is at the very end, I do put little, like in little triangles of 3, I'm going to put little white dots of 3 in the clouds and in the waves, both with the white and the gold, just to kind of pull the eye from any smudging, right? So that's all I do. So at this point, I want to thank you for hanging out with me, for being on the Jazzydoodledesign. If you haven't subscribed, it is free. You don't get emailed. You don't get any bombardment at all. But if you are subscribed to the channel, my videos will pop up in your home feed, and if you turn the notifications on, you will get a notice whenever a new video launches. So I encourage you to do that if you're interested in this kind of content. But I am really enjoying doing this book, and it's really pushed me to do pages I wouldn't normally do. This page probably wouldn't have been on my, I'm excited to do that page. But I think it turned out okay. And, they can't all be masterpieces, right? But I had fun being with you here and learning. So with that, I'm going to say goodnight, and I'll catch you on the next one. Okay, guys, this is it. It's been a labor of love for me. Hopefully you can see the gold, the shiny gold. And we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for watching another video from Jazzydoodledesigns. If you enjoy adult coloring content, please consider subscribing. You can now find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. I welcome all comments and suggestions. Don't forget to like the video before you go. And until next time, take care.